Hello, my name is Mitchell Forrest, and today I will be discussing the similarities and differences between the US prison system and the Norwegian prison system, as well as whether it might be time for the United States to adopt the Norwegian system in some volume. To give you a little bit of background information, according to Wikipedia and the University of Connecticut, the USA has a population of approximately 335 million people, whereas Norway has a population of just 5.5 million people. This comparable to the state of Minnesota. Both countries have nearly an even split of males and females. The mean ages of the USA and Norway are fairly similar, with the US's being 38.9 years old and Norway's being 39.7 years old. The US has the third largest landmass with approximately 9.85 million kilometers squared, while Norway has the 62nd largest landmass with approximately 385,000 kilometers squared. The US and Norway have very different correctional systems, and as such, the statistics for them wildly differ. One example of this is the recidivism rates of both countries. Ann Martinez says the recidivism rate of the US is about 75%, while the Norwegian system boasts merely a 20% recidivism rate. Another stark difference between US and Norwegian correctional statistics is the US's incarceration rate, which the University of Connecticut states is 737 for every 100,000 people, versus the Norwegian incarceration rate of just 54 for every 100,000 people. That's nearly a 1,000% difference. The reason for these stark differences in statistics could be explained by what Martinez thinks is a variety of fundamental differences between the US correctional system and the Norwegian correctional system. Martinez states that one of these differences is the goal of the systems overall. In the US, the correctional system aims to punish those who break the law, with prison, fines, and sometimes even death. In Norway, the correction system is much less focused on punishment, and instead aims at rehabilitating offenders. This fundamental difference can single-handedly explain some of the statistical differences between the countries. But to fully understand why the Norwegian system has such wildly different results, we must look at the differences between how a US prisoner is treated compared to a Norwegian prisoner. The average US prison cell is reported to be less than 90 square feet, according to the Government Accountability Office. To compare this to Norway, Wikipedia asserts that Norwegian prison cells are about 110 square feet, at least 20 square feet bigger than a United States cell. This is already an incredibly sizable difference. But on top of that, Norwegian prisoners are given access to a variety of classes across multiple different occupations in an effort to help prisoners get jobs when they are released. US prisoners are not given these classes, and many of them stay unemployed upon release. Norwegian prisons also spend much more money per prisoner than American prisons. The Norwegian prison system pays approximately $127,671 per prisoner, while the US prison system spends an average of $25,000 per prisoner, as maintained by the Berkeley Political Review. As a result of this, the Norwegian government is able to easily fund their prisons to make sure that the prisons successfully carry out their purpose of rehabilitating citizens. One more difference directly related to the prisons is what the University of Connecticut describes as the import model. That is, the tendency of Norwegian prisons to import their goods and services from the surrounding community. This includes food, medical personnel, active workers in the community to teach the classes, and many other things. This importing of goods and services helps the prisoners not only feel freer, but gives the prisoners the chance to participate in their community and make better connections with the people providing the services for them. The U.S. prison system mainly hires their own personnel and does not outsource any of the goods and services to the local community. This causes the prisoners to be isolated and struggle to maintain their social skills. It also makes it harder for them to re-enter society upon release. Other major differences between the Norwegian system and the U.S. system are that U.S. convicts lose their right to vote in upcoming elections, whereas Norwegian convicts retain their right to vote. Similarly, former American prisoners, specifically felons, are not allowed to own firearms and typically have trouble finding employment and housing on account of employers and realtors not wanting to be involved with them. Norwegian prisoners do not encounter these problems, as the prison system in Norway very effectively gives prisoners the skills they need to re-become normal citizens. One massive cultural difference between the US and Norway that has a significant effect on the prison systems is the racial demographics of both countries. The US has long been hailed as one of the most diverse countries on the planet, while Norway has always been heavily primarily white. This, combined with the US's complex racial history, causes major institutional problems in the United States framework as a country. As a result of this, the Berkeley Political Review asserts that the increased incarceration rates and recidivism rates may be able to be explained by the institutional racism and bias that is embedded in the United States political and correctional systems. According to Pervana, many people are quick to assume that the Norwegian prison system would automatically work in the United States on account of its overwhelming success in Norway. She is also quick to underline the fact that just because a correctional system works in one country does not mean it will work in another. Pervana lists multiple major differences between the two countries that could cause problems to arise. She notes that the population of the United States is nearly 66 times larger than that of Norway. This could create problems because the focus of the Norwegian correctional system is to limit the number of prisoners at any given time and work to rehabilitate them in the quickest manner reasonable. In the United States, they do not put so much emphasis on lowering the amount of people in prisons at any given time, and as such, the incarceration rates are so much higher than Norway. Another huge problem Pervana cites is the difference in the way the prisons are funded. In Norway, the government enforces high taxes that get put towards the prison and all of their programs. In the United States, the taxes enforced are not quite as high, and the amount that goes to the prisons is a much slimmer number. This means that the U.S. would need to increase their taxes in order to accommodate the programs and social welfare that the Norwegians implement in their system. Taxes have always been a hot-button issue in the U.S., and therefore, this would most likely be a very steep hill to climb. In addition to this, the Norwegians spend nearly 5 times more on each prisoner than the United States does. This is because they want to make the prisoners feel as if their rights are still being retained, though their freedom has been stripped. In conclusion, we discussed many strong differences between the U.S. and Norwegian correctional systems, such as the amount of prisoners being held, recidivism rates, ability to re-enter society after release, the way prisons are treated, and more. Differences that cause vastly different results in rehabilitation ability, recidivism rates, and overall effectiveness. With so many people in the U.S. moving for reform in the correctional system, is it possible that the U.S. could learn some new tricks and tactics from the Norwegian system to offer the American people a fairer system?